Tell me honestly, have you ever had a woman walk away and even after years, a part of you knew she still thought about you? Maybe she's with someone else now. Maybe she's living her life, smiling in photos, acting like she's fine. But deep down, she remembers you. Not because you were perfect, not because you had everything, but because something about you stayed with her. There's a kind of man a woman never forgets. He doesn't chase her, he moves her. He doesn't try to impress her, he inspires her. He's not the loudest in the room, but when he speaks, she listens. He doesn't always say, "I love you," yet somehow she feels it in every action. This kind of man lives by a quiet code, a way of being that ancient Stoics understood long before modern love became a game of texts and attention. And today, I'll share with you the 5 things such a man does that make him unforgettable. The kind of man who leaves a mark on a woman's soul, not just her memory. But before we begin, take a second. Subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and stay with me till the end. Because what you're about to learn might not just change the way you love. It might change the way you see yourself. Absolutely. Here's a 500-word, deeply engaging storytelling expansion of the first point. He controls his emotions and the calm in her storm. This version is written to hold viewers' attention, evoke their personal memories, and make them feel like the story is about their own love life. Keeping the flow emotional, relatable, and human. 1. He controls his emotions. Have you ever been in love with a woman who could make your entire world light up with just one smile, but also tear it apart with just one sentence? You know that moment when you're arguing late at night and she says something that cuts deep. Your heart is pounding, your mind is racing, and every part of you wants to fight back. You want to prove your point. You want her to understand how much she's hurting you. But then, something inside you tells you to pause, to breathe. You look at her, her eyes full of fire, her voice trembling, and instead of reacting, you simply stand still, calm, present, unmoved. That's the moment she never forgets. Because in her storm, you were her calm. You see, most men lose control in moments like these. They say things they regret. They shout, they defend, they chase. But the man who can hold his emotions when love turns chaotic, that man becomes unforgettable. Now think about this. Have you ever noticed how women remember the smallest emotional details? The tone you used, the look in your eyes, the silence between your words. Those things stay with her far longer than anything else. When you stay calm, you show her something rare. Strength without aggression, power without pride. You show her that your peace doesn't depend on her moods. And deep down, she starts to trust you. Not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't. Let's be honest, my friend. There was a time when you lost your cool, right? When love made you do things you swore you'd never do. You overtexted, you tried to fix everything. You chased validation just to feel okay again. We've all been there. But here's the truth. Women don't fall for men who chase their emotions. They fall for men who master them. When she's emotional, she's not testing your love, she's testing your strength. She's asking silently, "Can I trust you when I lose control?" And if in that moment you can stay calm, not cold, not detached, but calm, you give her the one thing she can't find anywhere else: emotional safety. That safety becomes the foundation of attraction. The more peace you bring to her chaos, the more she'll crave your presence. And years later, when she's lying next to someone else, maybe in a quiet room, maybe staring at the ceiling, she'll remember you. Not because of your looks, not because of your words, but because when she was at her worst, you didn't lose yourself. You became her calm in the storm. And that's the kind of love she'll never forget. 2. He gives without needing. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you started to lose yourself in the process? You gave her your time, your attention, your energy, everything. You stayed up late just to talk to her. You canceled plans just to be available. You gave her your all, hoping silently that she would notice, appreciate, and give you the same in return. And when she didn't, it hurt, didn't it? Because you thought love was about giving everything until she saw your worth. But here's the truth most men learn too late. Love that depends on validation is not love, it's attachment. The man a woman never forgets is the one who gives without needing. When you give without needing, your love becomes freedom. It's not heavy, not demanding, not desperate. It flows naturally, like a river that doesn't need to be seen to know it exists. Imagine this. She's had a bad day. She's distant, quiet, and you can feel something is off. Most men panic. They start asking questions, trying to fix everything. But the man who gives without needing? He doesn't chase reassurance, he offers peace. He says, "I'm here if you need me," and then he lets her be. He gives her space, not because he's cold, but because he understands that love is not about possession. You see, when a woman feels that kind of energy, that soft, confident, giving energy, she relaxes. She starts to trust you more because she realizes your love isn't a trap. Think about your own experiences. Wasn't there a time when you gave everything? Your heart, your effort, your patience, and still felt empty? That's because you were giving from a place of need. You wanted her attention, her affection, her validation. But when you give from fullness, when you're already complete inside and it feels different, you no longer give to be seen. You give because you see yourself. That's what makes a man powerful. Because when your love comes from self-respect, not need, it carries an energy she can feel even when you're not around. And here's the irony. When you stop trying to get love, love starts to come to you naturally. When you stop chasing her, she starts to move closer. Because now she's not reacting to your neediness. She's responding to your peace. She'll remember the man who didn't demand, didn't guilt trip, didn't beg. She'll remember the way your love made her feel safe, not trapped. Because in a world full of men who love to receive, she met one who loved to give, freely, calmly, without chains. And years later, when she looks back, she won't remember what you bought her. She'll remember how your love made her breathe easier. Because real love never suffocates, it sets both hearts free. 3. He knows when silence speaks louder. Have you ever been in the middle of an argument with someone you love, and deep down, you knew that no matter what you said, nothing would change? You talk, she talks, and both of you are just building walls with words. Now imagine instead and you stop. You breathe. You listen. You say nothing, but your silence says everything. That's power, the kind of power that doesn't come from dominance or pride, but from emotional awareness. There's a moment every man faces in love, the moment when you must choose between being right and being at peace. And the man a woman never forgets is the one who knows when to stay silent. Silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Think back to that one woman in your life. Maybe she's someone you loved deeply. Maybe she's someone who slipped away. Remember the times she was angry or distant, and you tried explaining yourself over and over? You thought if you could just find the right words, she'd understand. But what did that do? It drained you. It made things worse. Because sometimes the best response isn't an explanation, it's calm energy. When you choose silence instead of emotional reaction, you shift the power. You stop playing the game. You stop feeding the fire. You simply stand in your presence. And women feel that. You see, a man's silence can make a woman see herself. When you stop arguing and just look at her, not in anger, but in calm, she feels the weight of her own emotions. She realizes you're not fighting to win. You're protecting your peace. That moment stays with her. Because most men are noise, they react, they defend, they explain. But the man who can be silent, he becomes a mystery. And mystery is unforgettable. You don't have to talk to be felt. Your calmness, your body language, your ability to listen, that's what she remembers when the conversation is over. There's something magnetic about a man who doesn't need to fill every silence with words. When he sits next to her, says nothing, but makes her feel safe. That's real connection. Because his silence doesn't feel like distance. It feels like presence. And years later, she'll remember that. Not the arguments, not the explanations, but the moments when you said nothing, yet she understood everything. She'll remember how your silence made her feel seen. She'll remember how your calmness softened her heart when her emotions were wild. And she'll remember that in a world full of noise. She once knew a man who spoke volumes without ever saying a word. That's the power of presence. That's the silence that echoes forever. 4. He walks away with dignity. Have you ever loved someone so much that you ignored all the signs telling you it was time to let go? You kept hoping she'd change. You kept waiting for her to care the way you did. You gave and gave until one day you realized you were the only one still trying. That realization hurts like hell, doesn't it? Because letting go of someone you love feels like tearing out a part of yourself. But here's the truth. Yes, sometimes love demands silence. And sometimes it demands goodbye. Walking away isn't weakness. It's awakening. There comes a moment when you've done everything. Loved her, listened, forgiven, endured, and still, the relationship becomes one-sided. You start to feel small in a love that was once beautiful. You lose your peace trying to keep her. That's when the strongest men make a choice. Not out of anger, but out of dignity. They walk away quietly. No drama, no revenge, no begging for closure, just peace. You see, the man she never forgets is the one who could have stayed, but didn't. He loved deeply, but he loved himself enough to let go when love turned into pain. And trust me, she'll remember that. Because a man who walks away with grace leaves a silence louder than any argument. While she expects you to fight, to chase, to plead, your calm exit makes her question everything. She replays it in her mind, the moment you looked at her. Not with hate, but with quiet acceptance. The way you didn't raise your voice. The way you simply said, "I understand," and walked away. That moment doesn't fade. It lingers. Because deep down, she realizes she met a man who could love her and still choose himself. A man whose self-respect wasn't for sale. And that kind of man, she'll compare every other man to him. It's not the one who stayed that she remembers. It's the one who left right. You see, walking away with dignity is not the end of love. It's the beginning of self-love. It's the moment you reclaim your peace, your purpose, and your power. And yes, it will hurt. You'll miss her. You'll think about the memories, the laughter, the moments that felt like forever. But one day, when you look back, you'll realize that goodbye was the most loving thing you ever did for yourself. Because when a man walks away with dignity, he doesn't lose her, he finds himself. And that self-respect, that calm, unshakable energy, that's what she'll never forget. She'll remember the way you loved her, but she'll never forget the way you left. 5. He lives with purpose. Have you ever wondered why some men seem to leave a mark that time can't erase? Why some women, even after years, still think about that one man, not because of what he gave her, but because of who he was. It's simple. He wasn't chasing her. He was chasing his purpose. You see, there's something magnetic about a man who wakes up every morning with direction in his eyes. He's not waiting for validation. He's not drowning in emotions. He's building something. Maybe it's his business, his craft, his discipline, or maybe it's just his quiet pursuit of becoming better every single day. Whatever it is, his energy pulls her in without words. Now imagine this. She once loved a man who had nothing but purpose. He didn't text her all day, but when he did, it meant something. He didn't show off, but his actions spoke of progress. He didn't try to control her. Because his focus was never on possession, but on growth. And in that, she saw something rare. A man who didn't need her to feel whole. That's what women never forget. Not the money. Not the looks. Not even the romance. They remember the gravity of a man who walks with purpose. Because it's a feeling few ever give them. Purpose gives a man an aura that words can't describe. He becomes calm under pressure, focused amidst chaos. He's not distracted by small things because he's seen a bigger vision. And women deep down are drawn to that, not because they want to own him, but because they feel safe around a man who knows where he's going. She remembers how he didn't lose himself in her, how he loved her deeply, yet still chased his dreams, how his eyes lit up when he talked about what he believed in. That's the kind of man who leaves an imprint on her heart, the kind that no amount of time or distance can replace. Because here's the truth. Every woman eventually realizes that love without purpose feels empty. She'll meet others. She'll move on, but deep down, there will always be a small voice whispering. He was different. He had direction. He had fire. And that fire, that unstoppable drive, stays etched in her memory long after everything else fades. So if you want to be the man she never forgets, don't try to impress her. Impress yourself. Build, grow, lead. Make your life so full of purpose that love becomes a beautiful addition, not your entire existence. Because one day when she looks back, she won't remember every conversation or every date. She'll remember the feeling of being with a man who was going somewhere. A man who didn't just exist, he lived. And that kind of man, she can never replace. Ending. So remember this. She won't remember the fancy dinners, the gifts, or the promises. She'll remember your calm in chaos, your love without need, your silence when words weren't needed, your dignity when walking away, and your purpose that gave meaning to it all.